Welcome to TopShot NFT. I'm your host, Jason, and usually, as always, with me is my boy Lennox, the big man in the corner. Lennox has been dealing with a lot of snow in Chicago and focusing on his TopShot game, but he's back in the fold. What's going on, Lennox?
Oh, not much. I gotta ask. I see a weird dinosaur and a tiger in the background. What's the deal with that?
Well, it's become a custom to have this as my background. If you look even closer, I've got like a little laser light thing going on the background too. Just trying to spice it up. First of all, there's no such thing as a weird dinosaur, and second of all, tigers are awesome. Two of my favorite animals, and I've even got a panda above me. So we're in the jungle of TopShot, right?
Oh my goodness, look at that!
And I'm the king of the jungle. So, or at least our TopShot NFT podcast jungle. So you've taken a little bit of a sabbatical. Fortunately, we had Stephanie and Wade's jump in. They were great. Me and Wade's did an epic podcast of 2 hours. We will probably not go 2 hours this time. But just kind of give me like what you're seeing and what's been going on for you in the last week, and not just TopShot, but also just NFT in general and what you're seeing and what you're kind of picking up on.
Yeah, I guess I'll go TopShot in general. The first thing I'm trying to do is refine a short-term strategy, a medium-term, and a long-term strategy. What players am I holding up to? What players am I trying to get rid of so I can accumulate and target larger players, that kind of thing. So really just kind of watching the games and just thinking to myself, what is going to be valuable in the long term at TopShot? I personally think that some of these moments are overvalued. When you have, let's see here. Name a player where you have
Dylan Brooks.
Dylan Brooks is not the greatest example, but let's say
Mitchell Robinson.
Ibaka, when Ibaka's like a 25 or a $30 card, there's something wrong there, right? So like I want to make sure I consolidate my account and I'm looking to target certain players. So one of my you don't even know this, but one of my targets now has been Carmelo Anthony. The reason why I'm targeting Carmelo Anthony is I think he's going to be the next great player to retire. Now, I don't know if he retires this year. I don't know if he retires next year, but he strikes me as somebody who's going to have some long-term value, and I want to make sure that I get my hands on some Carmelo Anthony. So, hot tip, that's one of my buys that I've been doing behind the scenes here.
It's kind of yourself. Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned like the Zubox and Daniel Tice, Ish Smith, and those bottom, whenever you go in the marketplace and you hit like the low ask, if it's actually a great strategy, in my opinion. Like if you are new and like we've had an influx this week, I think there was 200,000 people in the reserve line on Saturday. So what a great thing that TopShot did in allowing, the new user to be guaranteed this experience of opening packs. Because as we're going to see, any legendary, any rare, any kind of random pack drop, there's going to be a lot of people missing out. So it was a really nice reward. And they even closed down the signups so that it would kind of be like, they've been very good about rewarding people that have come on the platform. And anybody that's new, and now, of course, people are starting to like hit me up and like, what is this all about? Now they want to get in the game, and I've been telling them about it for what seems like years, but 6-7 weeks, I guess. And I tell them to kind of target those Tices and Zubox and things of that nature. Not right now, because I think that they're still overpriced, but and I'm kind of stealing this a little bit from Wade's. Wade's has a bigger strategy of this, but if you buy a Zubox and buy 100 of them for $1, and then 2 weeks later you can sell them for $5, you 5x your investment. So that's a great way to kind of flip your way up into a position where you can start accumulating moments that are more long term, and certainly have value. We saw that the LeBron, well, when everything went limited, the LeBron went from $90 to 2,500 at one point, and I think it's hovering around 1,500 right now. And so, you know, the people that got in at that time when it was 90, you had an early point of entry to get a LeBron James, which is the coveted player of Top Shot. Now it's just way too, most people that come on the platform are probably not going to fork out 1,500 right out the get go. I hear a lot of new people saying that they want to get involved, but they don't want to, go all in, kind of like we have. They don't. They have a really finite budget of maybe even a couple $100s. So I kind of think that like picking up, what I guess you could call the scrubs of Top Shot, has some kind of value. I mean, is that kind of what you would say to a new person as well?
It's probably not my preferred strategy. I would, if I'm new, let's say I'm new and I have like 200 or 300 bucks. I'm trying to target players who are going to have uh, maybe medium term value. The value is not necessarily here today, but it can definitely come tomorrow. And somebody that comes to mind is Miles Bridges. I'm not sure what his card is trading for right now, but with the All-Star Weekend approaching, with the slam dunk contest, I think targeting anybody who you think will be in that slam dunk contest is a win right now. So Miles Bridges, who's our guy in the Cool Cats challenge with the block, the skinny guy?
The skinny
Derek
guy.
Jones. Yeah, Derek Jones. Those kind of guys. So if I'm a newer investor, I want to speculate on. I'm speculating on the All-Star game. Are there any undervalued guys? And I think the most value right now would probably be in the folks who could win that slam dunk contest. The slam dunk contest this year is at halftime, so it's going to have a unique spotlight in between halves. So I think that's really, really interesting.
Well, I guess that means Zion's.
So to answer,
Sure.
so to answer your question, I'm out on Tice. I'm out on the Zubaks of the world, but it is a good strategy. It is. It's just not one that I would pursue myself.
I think that one, we came in at a different time, and two, again, like it's just like I think that like anybody new to some kind of investing, and I think that we're getting a lot of people that are not only collectors. Like the collectors, it's easy to sell, right? Like they have no problem, putting a lot of money in because they're collecting for other reasons, but obviously there's a lot of people here that think that they're going to get rich. And, first of all, you're never going to get rich by investing $500. Like you might see great returns, but again, like I've heard a lot of people that's like, well, I'm going to put $100 on. What should I spend my 100 on? And I'm like, what that barely gets you. Maybe you can get a Keldon Johnson, which we know you're a fan of, but like you can't even get like a Bradley Beal or a Devin Booker, So, and that's that tier that we've talked about before. That the gold standards are your LeBrons, your Lucas, now your LaMelos, Zion's. I think that I actually have even told them to wait till base set 2 series 2 kind of comes out when all those massive CCs are going to be out. And then, $100 can get you a pretty nice portfolio. Now we don't know what's going to happen when base set 2 first hit and those mints went to 12,000. There was a big panic, and it's like, oh man, these aren't going to be worth anything. It's too much. Well, we see that we were kind of wrong on that. And, if you could roll back the clock before they went LE, you could have bought $10,000 worth of base set 2 and you'd be a millionaire by now, like, I thought I was having a discussion in the Discord, and a big point of contention was what's going to happen with the Cool Cats. And I think that when the Cool Cats first came out, we saw a lot of fluctuation in the prices. Like they went to like 400, but then they went down to like 100. and then they announced that there was going to be this master challenge, and that kind of changed the game a little bit. Now we're seeing, a Tyler Hero Cool Cat for $1,000, and people are hesitant, I think, to get into a Cool Cats challenge, especially the Masters, because they actually think that if they accumulate all these, that once the challenge is over, they're going to go, they're going to lose a lot of value. Where are you at? What do you think is going to happen to your Cool Cats? Because you and I are both all in on LaMelo.
Yeah, we definitely going to finish that challenge. I do think you're going to find some depreciation when that challenge is over, of course. However, I think that's going to be buoyed by the price of LaMelo Ball. I think if memory serves me correctly, it'll be a second card. It's a Cool Cat. It's kind of a special insert card. I also believe that certain players are going to hold value because of the player, not because it's a Cool Cat. So the Anthony Davis will always be a nice card. That the Luka Doncic will always be a nice card as well. So it's the brand name cards aren't really going to fall so much, but some of the second and third tier players that will drop. So I agree with that somewhat. That makes sense.
I was thinking about this, like, especially with the LaMelo, as we progress, and let's just say like the Cool Cats, the point, in order to, the floor will keep rising. If you're new and you wanted to like complete this master challenge, is there a world where there's just not that many people that complete the master challenge, so at the end there's really not this big dump off? Like, now we might be, a lot of people might be trying to sell them, but as opposed to like the very first Cool Cat challenge, where I believe there was 5,000 issued of each card, there was 3,600 Lukas made, so that's a pretty high percentage of people that collected Cool Cats to complete that first challenge. And then there wasn't, I don't know when they announced the master challenge or if people really understood, but there was this dump and the Cool Cats kind of went pretty low quickly. But then the idea of the master challenge, then the value went back. So I kind of almost feel like, depending on what that number of people that complete the master challenge, I don't feel like the Cool Cats are really going to drop in value that much afterwards. Am I wrong on that?
No, I think you're definitely, I see where your point is, but I do think it would be naive to think that there wouldn't be some kind of drop from people trying to get rid of certain cards and to exchange and look at different things. So
when I say drop too, though, I mean like 50%, like something dramatic.
No, I don't see 50%. I think, you're 10, 15, 20% kind of thing. I don't think 50%, no.
Yeah.
Because it is, at the end of the day, if you compare it to the regular card market, hey, this is a special insert pack. You had to do X to get it. Like, I think that will always have value with the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically the challenge reward card. Say the only way you got this card is you had to have this and you had to have this. And, imagine 5 years from now when you're talking about Cool Cats, if you still have those, that story is valuable in my opinion.
Absolutely. It's so interesting to me because there's really like 4 different tiers of top shotters. I would kind of put you in. Like, I would say that there's the base set, which is people that were just, can just kind of really afford to get base set moments. Then there's that next tier that can compete with the Cool Cats challenge. Then there's the gold, and then there's the hollow. So the hollow, at the last I checked, the floor for all the hollow moments was about 280,000. They just completed the first hollow challenge where Trae Young was awarded, and I believe that like Trae Young is going for like $20,000. I find it. I think the hollows don't increase in value the most, but they're already priced relatively high, and I think that hollows will hold. You and I have talked about this many times. Like we all want, like that number one LeBron or like a hollow or something, but it's almost kind of like a little advantageous in the sense that if you get one of these cards that's true value is 20,000 or more, like they're actually relatively difficult to move. Whereas, like, say you just focused on cool cats and golds, like, there's definitely flip opportunities. They can rise faster. Base cards are the ones where, like, it's going to require the most work, but man, can you really come up on the base?
No, to your point, I think that the hollow market, being what it is somewhat illiquid. You're not going to find many sales. You might find a sale or two a month. It's really going to apply to an off-brand hollow card. So if you had back to Mr. Ibaka, if you had a Serge Ibaka hollow card, I mean, and even if it was mint number one, you're gonna have a hard time moving that card just by the very nature of that market. So no, it is really interesting. So what is your strategy right now? Well, who are you targeting? What are you looking at? Like, what are your thoughts on Top Shot right now?
Um, I'm in this weird holding pattern. So one thing that you and I really kind of agreed upon, and we even agreed upon it a little late, is that if you're going to do a challenge, like, you need to commit right away. And going forward, that will be my style. Um, so you and I decided, like, let's kind of go for metallic golds, and kind of group our, like, pool our resources together to get these reward cards, and take some cream off the top, if you will. Um, what we saw with the golds was, there, I have a sheet and I wrote all the prices, and I think that at the time it was like 15,000 to get in, and we slowly started accumulating, and then we had this huge spike, and now, like, it's really scary, because, like, if there's a gold challenge down the road that requires a Zion or a Steph, and you got to fork out 10K, is that even worth it in order to get um, a Kawhi Leonard, gold? I feel like the good news is, like, if you buy the Steph and the Zion at 10K, like, you're gonna win. It's just tying up a lot of your resources. Um, so my focus has really been to just level up to gold for everything, have that set, and get the golds that are most important. Like, I was fortunate enough to scoop a Ja Morant for 1,000. I think he's over. I think he's around 4 or 5 at a peak. So, like, that's one that I'll keep, and then some of the others, like, the Dylan Brooks, the Mitchell Robinsons of the world. Not that, like, they might not become really good players, but, like, I'll kind of liquidate those in order to flip into what I would consider my gold standard. Like, I put it this way: come by the time of playoffs roll around, if my whole portfolio was nothing but uh, LeBron, Luka, Giannis, um, I would be completely okay and be fine if I missed out on that run on Zubox. And I hate to keep using him as an example. Fortunately, he's been at the bottom for a lot. He's actually very active on Top Shot and has an account, and we'd love to have him on the show if you're listening. And like, but what's funny is, in the Top Shot world, because there's only 180 moments of each player, or 180 moments in, like, base set 1 and I think base set 2. Obviously base set 2 is going to be more, but there's a lot of players that are, as Dr. J once said, are having a cup of coffee in the league. Will they get moments? Like, if you really think about it, Zubac starts most of the time, like, on a top team in the West, the Clippers. Pretty much every player that has a moment has either some potential or is actually kind of doing work in the league. It's kind of funny. Like, there's a lot of, when the traditional cards came out, man, you would get some guys that it's like, who is this guy? Like, why did they even give him a card? So it's funny, like, Blake Griffin doesn't have a moment, but that's coming. There's so many that they chose not to have. I don't know if I kind of like that or not. Because really, if you think about it, like, I can't really think of, like, a really, I can't really think of a really crappy player, that doesn't get any time. Well, yeah, I can. Jared Dudley. Like, it would be cool to have a Jared Dudley moment. He never gets in the game, but he's older. He's going to retire. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm a Laker fan. He's super valuable. He's a great lot. He's kind of like that player coach. And I think he's very important to any team that he's on. He's just not lighting the world on fire actually on the court, So are those kind of moments going to come? That would be kind of interesting because there could even be like some value in a Jared Dudley.
Yeah, I think we're still early. So I think that Top Shot themselves are kind of refining the strategy. I think in a perfect world, we'd probably see, 2 or 3 pack releases a week, but they're still kind of refining that process. So in regards to what moments come out and how they're kind of distributed, I think it's kind of a wait and see game. So personally, I also think it's important to define, what is your strategy? Are you a flipper? Like, hey, I want to come in with X and I want to get out, or hey, are you more medium term? Hey, I have this lump sum goal that I'm trying to reach and I only have this much to invest. Or B, am I kind of a long-term hodler kind of person? So I think your strategy all depends on, what are your goals, right? So me myself, I think I'm more of the medium term guy. So I may liquidate a strong part of my portfolio before the playoff starts. That's kind of what I'm looking at. That's kind of my date, but I'm going to do all I can to maximize my portfolio until that moment. There are some cards that I'm going to hold on for the long term. Those Kelvin Johnsons, I'll be holding on to those. Those Devin Vassals, I'll be holding on to those and all my rookie cards. But I think that, as I've told you, with cryptocurrency and just all kind of things, it's important to take profit, especially if that's what your strategy is. If you are somebody who's looking to potentially turn around and get a flip, take profit. It's a good thing. I know you're missing out. I know it's kind of scary, but I think that I would tell anybody who's made profit in Top Shop to make sure you take some of that home with you.
I think for as long as the basketball season, and I would argue till the end of the playoffs, or at least mid playoffs. So I would think there will probably be a bit of a decline once we're down to like the conference finals or maybe even the semis. I like to buy 3 cards. Like, that's kind of my strategy now going forward. So that way I can kind of be all 3 of the flipper, the middle guy, and the hodler. So if I buy, obviously you need a bit of a bankroll for that, but you kind of don't either, if you're getting the cheaper moments. But so if I buy, let's just say, like, for the LeBron, when it was $100, if I bought 3 LeBrons, right, when it went up to, for $100, when it went up to like 5 or 6, I can sell it. So that way I've made a profit. I've doubled my investment, but then I've also got 2 to hold on to. So when it went skyrocket again to like 25, I could sell that, make an even better profit. And then I have the one that's the one that I hodl, and I will have like that's kind of my thought is, just to throw numbers out. Like, so if my goal was to say make $100,000 in profit this year, I only want to make 100,000 if I have at least 100,000 worth of moments left in the hopper. That's kind of what I would be shooting for. I want to be playing with house money. I think we all do. It's so funny, just saying that we're still early and trying to remind ourselves, especially when 200,000 people were in line. How can we be early when there's 200,000 people? But we haven't even made it, through a full season. The bubble was a large part of that. I think was alpha and like the early beta. And while there was action, it was nowhere near what we're experiencing now. So when does it stop becoming early? What do you think is the signature that if someone was coming into Top Shot, it'd be like, you're kind of late?
Well, I think you have to compare Top Shot to the traditional basketball market. And I think we're just fractions of what the actual physical card market is right now. So I would say that once we got to 25 or 30% of that market in terms of active users on Top Shop, that's when I think we become more of we're not early anymore. We're kind of in a more mature phase. I think we're a while away from that because it is still hard. Or the newer person, I had somebody call me today, actually, one of my cousins that I haven't spoken to in a couple of years, and he said, "Hey, man, you struck me as a guy that would be into NBA Top Shot. Are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm into NBA Top Shot." And I had that discussion with him, but I think it's going to take a while. Like, I think it may be 6, 12, 18 months before we actually get to the beginning of kind of a maturity phase. So I think there's still a lot of growing to do, personally.
What do you think the effect that Mark Cuban, Gary V, and like which if you had to pick one that was the most influential right now, and I don't even know that they're necessarily responsible for the spike, um, but obviously you know you'd be a fool to say they didn't have some kind of influence. So if you had to pick Mark Cuban, uh, Brian Windhorst ESPN article, or Gary V, who has the most influence in our recent spike?
I when you say Mark Cuban, when you say Brian Windhorst, I think they have a certain type of person that follows them. I think probably the game changer for me would be Gary Vee, just because of his impact on the physical card market. Here's a guy that's been beating that drum for a very long time, and he's had people who've made money with him because of his recommendations, because of his advice. So if you talk, if I'm going to pick out one person who may be responsible for Top Shot's growth, even though I think it's a multitude of factors,
Mhm.
I'm definitely going to go with Gary Vee, because I think people are willing to buy on his recommendations.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I think Mark Cuban is interesting because he's been on like some shows too. Like Gary Vee is, you know, it's all social media, but it's all snippets. Like I feel like he's not giving a ton of uh, meat on the bones as to why. And maybe he doesn't need to with his following. Like, you know, hey, invest in ice for Eskimos, like, and people will run and do it. Mark Cuban, he was on. He's been on a number of things. It seems like that's the one thing he's talking about. And it's funny, what's valuable with him is that he was down on crypto in the beginning and he's turned it around. And you know, it's so funny in this climate that we live in, like if you're wrong and then you realize something's right, like that's okay, but it's almost like you can't change your mind in this world, or like that's a problem. But you know, kudos to him. And I think again, like it, the only reason I would kind of pick Cuban is because he gives it validity, right? Like with his background with Shark Tank. I think Brian Windhorst just brought a lot of eyes to it for the casual sports fan. And to your point, like I think Gary Vee probably brought the most users. You know, it's a culmination of all three. What is so they've already pretty much said that they're still not. They had plans to do like promotions for March, and they're not going to do that. Now we don't know for sure. Top Shot is, you know, had its situations where they've, you know, look over here and they're doing something over here. Um, what what do you think is like where are we going right now? Like what will we continue on this trajectory, or is it kind of like let's just kind of stand pat with the people that we have right now and just take care of them?
Well, at the end of the day, they run a business, and they want to bring as much money as possible as a business, right? So I think the first thing that they're doing is they're refining the pack release process. I think they very much listen to what's being said in the discords, what's being said on Twitter, because they, I'll give them credit. I'm involved in other projects where they're not nearly as involved. You can't get a moderator to respond.
Right.
You can't get the participation that you get with Top Shot. So I give them credit. So what do I think they're doing? I think they're refining the product. I think they want to get packs out. I think they want to do all they can to release as many packs as they want to, or commit to that 2 pack a week thing. They just can't do it right now. So I think it's investing in infrastructure, hiring people, scaling up, um, doing that KYC stuff so you can get your payments out, that kind of thing.
So I just checked Crypto Slam, and then the last 24 hours. Now, granted, the marketplace was down for a bit too yesterday, but there's only been 12 million in transactions on marketplace. So obviously you need to sell everything. I'll buy your account for 10% of what it's worth right now if you're panicking. Uh, but it was like 40 million days that we've experienced. We've also, I'm going to butcher the numbers, but just to give you a ballpark idea, like let's say that they've done $250 million in the history of transactions. In the last 30 days, 200 million of that was in the last 30 days. Like that's just kind of insane. So it's almost like where does this go? I mean, is there, God, if it was 200 million in 30 days and we're still early, I mean, is there a world where it's $1 billion in transactions a month?
If they can get more product out, I think they, as you're aware, or I think as our listeners should be aware, there was a guaranteed pack release yesterday. So everybody with a valid TopShot account, they're shipping you a pack for $9 that you'll get in your account within, I believe, 2 weeks. So
As long as you stayed in line, just to make sure that
as long as you stayed in line,
Yeah.
as long as you stayed in line. So I think it's how can we get folks product? People want to open packs. They want to see what that's like. And I think that was good on TopShot for doing that.
Man, that when they do that, it's almost like it's like that. It's like I don't want to say crack, but like it's the only thing I could think of. It's like, oh, this crack rocks for free, and then boom, like because there is like this weird anxiety. Plunge Father was tweeting about like this anxiety for pack drops, and then you know as much as the disappointment when you couldn't get one, but when you do get one and you open it. Now, obviously, if you open it and it's not the best moments, but like just the fact that you can kind of pick up the pack and get it and the music and all that stuff, like, man, I don't know if they really focused on the psychology of the pack and like that euphoric dopamine rush, but whether it was planned or by accident, man, they really nailed it. And Tyrese Halliburton was doing a live pack drop opening, and great guy, like giving away a lot of moments to people in his chat, which I think is important. Like, don't just give the players moments, but like involve the community and give them moments too. And he's I gotta give I give props to him and Josh Hart. They're really they're doing a good job. They're making it fun and interactive. And we had talked about this on the very first episode when we were still navigating. And I think we even talked to Alan about it. And how can you incorporate real life stuff with TopShot? Meaning, like if you're holding like a LeBron Cosmic, can you get courtside seats? Well, what we're actually kind of seeing, and Terry Rozier kind of did this, saying like if you buy his moments for like $5,000, he'll send you like a signed jersey. Like I think that's awesome, and I don't really care to have a Terry Rozier jersey. I'm not a collector like that, but that's a pretty cool element that as a player, what an opportunity if you have a charity to just buy a bunch of your cards for let's just say I don't want to use Halliburton, but like say Terry's card is going for like $300. If he buys like 20 of them for $300, then lists them all for 5,000, and if you buy it, he'll ship you a pair of his shoes and donate all that to charity. What a great move that could be, and that like I really like that idea. Like I think that can start to transcend a lot of things.
Yeah, I'll give TopShot a lot of credit for adding utility to their product, whether it being the Cool Catch Challenge or the metallic gold or whatnot. But I have a question that kind of comes to my top of my head to make it more real for our audience. We won't speak on the LeBron, but can you talk about a mistake that you made, something that you wish you could take back, or like, damn, like I wish I wouldn't have done that. Like what's one of the mistakes you can speak on in your TopShot collecting career?
The first, I think the biggest mistake that I made is that I didn't go all in kind of right away. Like I just kind of treaded in the waters, and I kind of wish I drank more of the Kool-Aid just right out the gate, you know. But you know what you know in hindsight's 2020. I did sell a couple of metallic golds for pennies, basically, and I have recently bought them back for 10x of what I sold them for. Um, but I don't look at that even as a mistake because one, I didn't know that was the market value for what it was at the time, and I took that money and I was able to buy other stuff that has probably, helped my portfolio and to grow. And there's no way that you're going to make. Certainly, you're going to make buying and selling mistakes. You're going to buy too high or sell too low. Do you have a specific moment that I made a mistake that you're thinking of?
I don't. I'm just. I think it's good to kind of reflect on what you can do better, what you could have done better, that kind of thing.
I will say that I don't like the idea of flipping. Like, I think especially if you're new, like you should not be thinking of making a quick buck and flipping. I think it's imperative that you buy based on your budget and who you like, and who you think is going to do well. Not kind of jump on like the Maxi. I can never say his last name. Kleber,
something like that.
Yeah, like just because Mark Cuban mentions him and you see it going up, don't buy it trying to flip. I've made that mistake, but it won't be a mistake. Now I have to hold them. Now, my biggest mistake in the NFT space, and again, it's not a mistake. It will just take time for me to be rewarded. Is I bought a piece of art that was just going like skyrocketing. Unfortunately, I bought it when the booster rockets detached, and so now it's just in orbit in the ether. And again, and man, like it was, you have to be very careful in this game because I spent more money on this. Damn, probably more besides my car and my house. Like that was the most expensive thing I've ever bought in my life. And I literally decided within like not even 5 minutes. And that button to buy is just so damn easy to click. Now, again, I'm 100%. I could sell it right now and get out of it and have very minimal loss. But I'm a little stubborn, and I do believe that it will eventually go to where I can even be somewhat profitable. But the fact that that's just kind of a big chunk of my bankroll is kind of stuck there. I shouldn't have done that. And that was me trying to be a flipper when that's not, there is a skill to flipping.
That's awesome. I like it.
What's funny is what the art piece is. It's you can look it up. It's called, I think, Metal as Fuck Frankie or Cranky. And it's a little doll with a spray can head, and I paid $6,400 for it. And literally I got the red one. And so the highest sale for that spray can is $6,400, yours truly. Like, but it went 2,000, 3,000. I tried to get in at 3, it didn't go. Tried to get in at 4, it didn't go. Then I got the 6,400, and then I posted for 10, and that was it. And it has been sitting there in my thing. I'm not a big, that was my mistake too. It's not something that I was like really interested in. Now, traversely, Micah Johnson had an NFT drop called Genesis. And I suggest people take a look at it. Like if you're into art, and I watched that thing. Like I'm proud to actually show it off, which is cool because I think you need some piece of that. You can't just be totally business with this. Like, because I bought 2 of them with that same idea. Like I'll flip one, make a little bit of profit, and then I'll hold one for like a longer term in case it does something crazy. But when you buy like 2 or 3 and you can sell one and recoup your investment, then you're playing with house money, and then you don't feel compelled to kind of like, what do I do? Like we had the we went in on a pack for the hoops holidays and got the LeBron, as everyone knows, and we sold it for 8,000. Now it's going for like 40 or 50,000. But we took that and flipped it into a bunch of other things too, and so we won't have one big win for like 50,000, but we've made so many smaller wins that have actually probably ended up accruing us a bigger win than just if we had held on to that LeBron. And certainly a longer term, because you guys gotta remember, like, always think like if you've got this card for $50,000, unless you're like super emotionally attached and the money does not mean anything to you, the idea of holding a $50,000 card and it going to 100,000 faster than if you held, we'll say, $51,000 cards and they go to 2,000. You know, realistically, the $1,000 card has a lot more, and it's going to be liquid, because once your card goes to 100,000, it sounds awesome and it's cool. But that's one of the reasons why there's an auction right now for the Zion. You know, to the platform can't has a limit of 250,000. Once you do sell it, you, as of right now, you can't take the money out. So you do it on an auction, and they're gonna get that money. You pay the auctioneer or whatever. I wonder what TopShot, because that's kind of like a problem. You know, I think that they definitely have to get it to where, you know, they raise the ceiling, but also the amount of money that you can get out, or else like this auction for all their biggest sales is going to happen.
So I think that's going to. I think they have a solution that they just haven't announced it yet. If you're familiar with OpenSea, OpenSea now has a contract or capabilities with the Flow blockchain. So I think at some point, I don't know the timeline, but you will be able to transfer your TopShot moments onto OpenSea, and that would solve that money problem you're talking about right now. That would no longer exist anymore.
Okay.
So that should be done.
What I mean, so I've gotten questions too, because they, you know, now like some of my friends that have actually adopted and you know, gotten onto TopShot, they're asking me, well, what else are you involved in? And so I tell them about Nifty Gateway and art. But Nifty Gateway is interesting in that it's, I don't know where I sit on it. I usually defer to you. Like, I don't know if I feel like that's where you can win really big, but it's just like a different kind of timeline. And I also am hesitant to steer anyone there because it's, well, you could end up spending $6,000 on a spray paint can. But
for the record, I have that same spray paint can. For the record, I have it too.
Wait, didn't you win like the lottery or something for the drawing for it? Yeah.
But I have your spray can too, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, I have it as well, just for the record.
Yeah, I paid 20.
I paid $350 for mine. I paid $350 for mine, though. That's the difference.
I paid 17 times the amount. Smart guy.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm being
sorry. No. My point is, it's kind of like Nifty Gateway is like big boy land. Like, are you? What's the difference? Like, I feel like the learning curve for Nifty Gateway is steeper and also can punish you much more than TopShot.
Well, I don't think if you're buying things, so really quickly, Nifty Gateway sells their art in 3 different formats. The first format is called the open edition format. And what that means is you can buy a piece of art and as many pieces as you want to for 5 minutes. So typically you'll have a piece that's around $1,000 and you can buy as many of those $1,000 pieces as you want to in that 5-minute time period. That's number one. Number two, they have a silent auction feature. So as soon as every auction is at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, my time. So the open edition starts at 6 p.m. The next is the silent auction. And what that is you can bid It's for 10 copies of whatever particular art we're talking about. And it's a silent auction. So the top 10 highest bids win that particular auction. And last, there's the live auction, which goes for 24 hours. And, some of those prices they're typically absorbent. You're going to see stuff that's finishing, in excess of $100,000. Now, to your point, I think that the real money, if you really want to get out there and try to do something aggressive, Nifty Gateway is the way. If you're YOLO and you want to make your mark on the world, I think that's where you do it. Now, I think the easiest way to win at Nifty Gateway is to buy things that you like and buy things that you're comfortable holding for a very long time. I mean, I really think that's what it boils down to. My personal strategy, I love to buy art pieces that have a physical component with it. I would say that all of my big purchases on Nifty Gateway also include, I bought a statue. Jason knows that. I bought a very expensive statue. I bought, I bought several pieces on Nifty Gateway, and I'm just a big fan. I happen to like it a lot.
I like it. It's funny because when we were in the early days of TopShot and there was so many technical difficulties, and we were like, come on, why can't Nifty Gateway, why can't TopShot learn from Nifty Gateway? And now Nifty Gateway is having problems with the amount of traffic. There was a piece today, I think there was 5 of them, and the way that they've eliminated bots is that each one is a drawing. And so these 10 pieces, you're randomly selected to win, but there was 15,000 people trying to win 10 editions of this piece. It's kind of funny. Like, I don't like the fairness of it, but at the same time, like, I'm also not able to create a bot or what have you to win. So I guess it's the best thing. I would like if there was something like I could study, learn, and become better at to win. Like, I would prefer that way, but there's just no. I'm not going to learn how to create a bot, and so I guess it is what it is.
Well, let me ask you this in regards to Nifty Gateway and buying art you like. Let's talk about the Kobe Bryant piece that went up. So Jason and I, every day, mostly every day, we'll have a Nifty Gateway conversation. And hey, are you in today? Are you out today? Are you in today? Are you out today? Well, there's Boss Logic had a release, and they had this Kobe Bryant artwork with a halo over his head. And immediately I loved it. I was a big fan. I talked to Jason about it. Jason was like, hey, man, that's dope. I was like, all right, man, let me transfer some Ethereum into my account, because it allows you to purchase get a lower mint and purchase the art quicker. Well, I got lazy and I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like doing it. And I did not buy that Kobe Bryant Boss Logic art piece for $1,000 today. And how long ago was that released, Jason? 3 weeks? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that.
That you can't find that art print cheaper than $18,000. That's a win.
So this is how the conversation goes. He tells me about the Kobe. I look at it, I was like, man, that's awesome. He's like, you want to go in on? I was like, I'm in. And typically when Lennox calls me up and says, like, I'm thinking about that, I'm in. Like, I'm the easiest pushover. Like, I don't know if it's a little bit of gamble in me from my poker days or anything, but like, when you have somebody like our relationship and our friendship, which is 20 years old now, a lot of times, like, I'm always going to say yes, pretty much, especially now. But man, that was one of those, because I think I didn't even like kind of give it any thought, and I think I called him up, Lennox up, and I was like, so where's the Kobe thing? He's like, I didn't get it, and I was like, yeah, all right. Like, it's just out of sight, out of mind. And then you start looking and it's just like, man. And there's things, I will say this, like, there is gut feelings that you should actually kind of listen to, especially when it comes to art. To your point, like, if you like it and you like looking at it, and that has a value to it that can allow you to hold it and not be necessarily tied to the results. The hard part would be is if we had that, like if I had bought that Kobe and now it's sitting at 20,000 and I actually am attached to it. And I think like, man, this is just so cool. That's why back to my strategy of buying at least two, so that, you can sell it for 20. And then if it goes to something crazy, like, and I think that Kobe will definitely, that could be $1 million piece in a couple of years, if not 100,000 by the end of this year. When it gets to those numbers, then you have to have that heart to heart with yourself and maybe break up, go your separate ways. But that's definitely a strategy. I don't think that is talked about enough. I think that, it's very passive to say, oh, just buy the stuff you like. Well, nobody's really, like in any of this game just to have things, because it's not like something that you can hang in your wall. You can obviously get devices and figure that out, but it's not like, when I go to Ross and I see a $50 painting, like, or like this tapestry that I have behind me, it's from Hong Kong. It was like $3 on the street, like I didn't buy that piece of art because I, thought it was going to be worth something and it was an investment. I bought it to commemorate my trip to Hong Kong, and, it's like silk and everything. And I thought it was cool,
That's silk?
Sure. That's what the woman told me in Mongkok at the street fair.
I bet she did. I bet she told you it was silk.
This funny story. So for those of you that have not been to Hong Kong, Mongkok is the busiest intersection in the world. I think there's another one. Jakarta is probably up there for traffic, but this is the busiest like walking area, so they say. And it's an open flea market, and everything is negotiable. Like, and that's part of why tourists go there is to haggle. And I was buying a LED belt and you could program it to say stuff. And I just thought it was silly. And so I was buying that. And what happens is like they said it was like 1,000 Hong Kong dollars or whatever. And I was like, no. I was like 100. So, oh, no. And she's like 800. And I was like 150. And then she was like 200. And then she like grabbed a backpack. And she was like, 250 for both. I didn't even want the backpack. It's actually one of my favorite backpacks now. And I was like, no, I don't want that. And then she's like, she grabbed that tapestry and she grabs this. She's like, very nice. Total 300. And I was like, I ended up buying 3 things for $300. And I got my belt, which broke by the time I got it back to the hotel. But no returns, all sales final. So
in terms of other any NFT projects that I think are interesting that I'm personally invested in, there's unstoppable domains, and that's basically like, imagine the domain stuff that came with the .com era, so that's a thing. There's the Bitcoin origins on the Wax blockchain. There's Play Blankos. It's a game where you're walking around with this character with this little suit thing on. Like, I'm invested in that. It's kind of hard to keep it all straight at the end of the day. What else? There's also a lot of exciting projects coming up on the Flow blockchain. I know they have UFC, Dr. Seuss, Evolution. What else? What am I missing, Jason?
So there's 2 things that I saw today. One, the NHL I think has contacted Dapper. Now this is all speculation in Twitter, and I don't have anything to confirm, but apparently the NHL is like jealous of sorts and wants to get in and do something very similar to NBA TopShot. So the other leagues, I believe, are starting to take notice, which, in my humble opinion, I think that they will be less successful compared to basketball, because I believe basketball is just a more global market. And we've talked about like China, when China really gets aware of NBA TopShot, what that will mean. a market with 1 billion+ people that are rabid basketball fans. NFL, even though it's super popular and the number one sport in America, does it really have the same thing? It's kind of funny too, because I feel like the NFL would be more of a flipping opportunity because players get so injured. Like you could get I don't follow NFL, so just throw out a name of a top running back. Derrick Henry. Is it Mark Henry? Derrick Henry?
No, it's
Like,
Derrick Henry.
okay. So like obviously I would assume like you would want to get his moments, but unfortunately all it takes is he blows out his knee and he's done. Like running backs do not have a high shelf life. Um, of course, then you'd have your gold standard, your Tom Brady, Drew Brees, the quarterbacks. But I feel like basketball is much better for all of that. The UFC is the most interesting sport that I think goes next level. I think soccer might be too confusing, but I think UFC really encapsulates the global economy. Fighters are from so many different countries. Those countries will definitely want. Like Ireland would obviously be all over Conor McGregor. You know, um, like if they did like a throwback with Silva, like from Brazil, or the Gracies. Like now you've got a whole country that wants it and they're popular. All those things. The Dr. Seuss, I think, could be like the next Pokemon. Or I'm guessing Pokemon is not really digital, right? They're just still physical cards, right?
I mean, they have that Pokemon Go game that was a craze for a while. You
Right.
talk about like whoever gets that, it's over. It's a game changer. Whatever blockchain lands Pokemon, wow.
Yeah. God, I do not. But see, like all the things you're saying that you're looking at, it's like you really gotta. Like my advice is always kind of keep it simple, stupid. Um, pick one, two, maybe three that you're interested in. But I do not want to become a Pokemon expert. You know, that is definitely a space where it's like, get in early, buy a bunch of packs, and just come back and revisit it later. Um, the the NFT space in general, my concern for that is that it could get saturated. Like I think that I'm a little concerned. I think like most things will eventually have value. It'll just be like a bit of a longer play, but like we bought the CryptoCaster from Philosophy, and then he just had the shoe drop, and now he's having another drop in a week or two. And kudos to these artists, but like you got to be kind of cognizant of that. Like I'm off on him, and he could be the next people. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think a key part to art collecting is scarcity. I think in the last like literally 4 weeks, I think there's been 4 ferocious drops. So I actually have a piece that's I have one of Ferocious's earlier pieces. I have the CryptoCaster like you do. And I saw that, Nifty released their upcoming lineup, and he was there again. So it makes you definitely, hey, like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this.
Well, I think we should. I'd like to kind of wrap it up with a little bit of basketball talk. The All Star, the All Star selections were named. Um, I gotta think that Top Shot is going to have a special All Star insert of sorts, and what I am praying to God for is that Zion goes between the legs in the middle of a game, and that becomes like the greatest highlight on the planet, and it's iconic. And I'm no secret like a big Zion fan. LeBron's my guy, but he's on his way out eventually, and so Zion will be my next. It's for my lifetime. It's been Charles Barkley was my guy. I kind of went through a phase where I didn't really have anybody, so Shaq was kind of it, and then LeBron came on the scene, and so when the LeBron era is over, then I will be 100% behind Zion, provided he stays healthy. How do you feel about what Top Shot could do with the All-Star game and just the overall selections?
Yeah, I think there's going to be heavy integration, maybe not now, but in the future, given the popularity of Top Shot. I definitely think the NBA is taking notice as to how popular these things are, and it's definitely going to manifest itself in the future. Now, in terms of the actual All Star game, 1000%, there will be an All Star game pack. Now, the problem is, you're going to have 10,000 packs and 450,000 people. Like that's the drawback, right? So, how do you, on one hand, I'm with you. Like, I'd love to see that Zion dunk. On the other hand, the chances of getting that damn thing, very, very hard.
Yeah. Did you see? Did you feel like anybody was snubbed from the All Star team?
I mean, at the end of the day, you have 12 picks, and there can only be 12 players. So obviously, you have your 7 or 8 or 9 locks, and then everybody else all has kind of a fringe candidacy. At the end of the day, I mean, it is what it is. There's 12 spots. What can you do about it? So to answer your question, I think that those last tier players, the last tier all stars, they were all similar. So I mean, what can you do? You know what I mean?
So if you were going to pick the next 5 up, the next 5 guys from the league that will be the newest additions to the All Star game, like that will make their first appearance after this year. Who will be the next 5 up if you that you like?
I think you have to start with LaMelo Ball, right? I mean, there's a hype train there, and the guy's legitimately good. Like, I think that, at first everybody was saying how terrible of a draft this was, and there was no true lottery picks and that kind of thing. Now it looks like LaMelo would be a number 1 pick in almost any draft now. So I guess LaMelo makes that list. I got to give a shout out to my guy, Keldon Johnson. You know what I mean? Why can't we have Keldon Johnson for the All Star game? Why not? You know what I mean? Why
Okay.
not?
Okay.
And from all accounts, the upcoming draft class is supposed to be one of the best we've ever had. So maybe one of those guys kind of sneaks in.
This coming draft class?
This coming draft class is supposedly going to be one of the best draft classes we've ever had, especially in the top 5.
Okay. I mean, I like to think that I know basketball, and I will admit that this year watching college basketball, I have missed out on a lot. Now, I do know that there's like a lot of these G League players, and they're not exposed. So we don't like you had to know them from like coming out of high school, but now they've kind of been behind the curtain. So unless those are the players you're talking about, like there's nobody in college to me that just jumps off the page.
Well, I think the hype is absent this year because you don't have crowds, you don't have Dickie
Right.
V screaming and yelling. So I think there's the normal hype that we see, the normal hype around March Madness, that's all gone now, right? So it's a little harder to see, but again, according to all accounts, everything I've read, everything I've seen, the top 5 players in this draft are as good as any that's been out, at least in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's just LaMelo and next year's draft.
LaMelo, Keldon Johnson, a guy from next year's draft, and first-time All-Stars. Who else? Anybody else? Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got for you, buddy.
You gonna leave John Moran out?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you got to add John Morant. If he stays healthy, it seems like he's frail, man. He's a thin guy, but he has amazing talent.
Yeah, I will say Anthony Edwards is impressive, but he's highlight impressive. You know, I don't see like I don't know if that means like he's going to like is he a franchise player? I don't think so. You know.
So to close out, my final question to you: Papa John's, Pizza Hut, Domino's. Where are you going, and what toppings are you getting on that pizza of yours? Given the chance.
That's a great question because it was always Papa John's, and when
it's still Papa John's. It's still Papa John's, by the way. But go ahead.
Well, but here's my problem with what Papa John's, because when we were at App State together, there was student special #1, and it was a large 1 topping, and you got cheese sticks for $7.99, and that was a big splurge like that we would get sometimes if the cafeteria was closed and we were hungry or partaking in things. And it will you agree that they have changed their crust and their sauce from 20 years ago? Like it's not the same pizza.
I'll be honest. I had Papa John's like a week ago, and I thought it's the best pizza I've ever had. So I am very pro Papa John's here.
So we don't have Papa John's that delivers in LA. Like, well,
Mm.
I excuse me, it does deliver in LA, but it's very LA's got this weird. There's a lot of pockets that pretty much deny franchises to operate outside of McDonald's and In-N-Out. The rest of the restaurants are kind of like mom and pops or very small franchises of like 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that. So Papa John's, I can't get it delivered, and I'm not going to drive all the way like 30-45 minutes, to get a pizza. So I have to shout out to Vinny's here in El Segundo. That's what I get. But Papa John's, Domino's is trash. That's just that's just like that's pizza that you drink when you're like at 3, or that's pizza you eat at like 3 o'clock in the morning when you come home from the bar. I always liked Pizza Hut when they used to have the pizza buffet in the Pizza Hut. But yeah, I would. Was that the 3: Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's? Is there other deliveries? Aren't you in Chicago? Why are you eating Papa John's? Aren't you guys?
It's funny because we have a lot of great pizza places, and I've eaten at a lot of great pizza places, but I had to go back home. Give me the Papa John's, give me the double sausage and the sauce and the garlic sauce, and it's a wrap. It's over.
So which you've been to New York? Which
Yes.
you go New York or Chicago pizza?
Chicago style pizza is like it's so big and it's so heavy. It's like really thick and it's layery, and you can only eat one slice and you feel all terrible about yourself. So sadly, I'm going with the thin New York style pizza.
So there's this pizza joint right on the corner of 34th and Penn, I want to say, right near Madison Square Garden. And I go there every time I go to New York, and I get a regular New York slice, but they also have that like kind of soup pizza that like is cut in the square. It's the best. But I would still, at the end of the day, like I'm cool with getting Papa John's. Like I ain't going to complain at all. Yeah, Papa John's. All right, we'll close this out with food. What number top 2 places for steak?
I'm not a steak guy, but for a guy that has to eat steak for work, here in Chicago, I'd say number 1 would be Chicago Cut. It's on the the river.
Is that part of the Cut franchise, or is it just its own like mom and pop type? Because there's a Cut.
So then it's probably a franchise then. So Chicago Cut, number 1, and number 2, I'd probably go with Prime and Provisions, which is also on the lake as well. Really tasty. And I'm not a steak guy, but those are pretty solid places.
So I've been to every major steak place in Los Angeles and Vegas for sure. And I actually went on like a tour where I was eating like the biggest steaks. Like I went to Niagara Falls and had like a 60-ounce steak at a place. It was on Man versus Food. But Vegas to me is the best place to have like steak all the time because they got Cut, they got Steak 9, Delmonico, like just all of those are just like solid. But my number 1, and it's not even really because of the steak. It's a place called it's either Kings or Keens. I think it's Keens. And this joint in New York is like old school. Like there's that fat Italian guy like being fed in the corner, like mafioso type. But it was an old smokehouse from like the 1800s, like Gangs of New York type style. And they have all these like pipes that are like 100, 200 years old. And like, I'm a big guy on like ambiance. Like, I feel like there's no real way to kind of screw up a steak at a reputable steakhouse. But like you give me the ambiance and everything, and that's pretty dope too. So, yeah. Well, is there anything else that we need to cover for our loyal fan base?
That's all I have for right now.
All right. So just a heads up for you guys. obviously, if you've made it this far, make sure you subscribe. We appreciate you. Comment your favorite pizza place so that we have a, we can get a Rolodex going in pizza and steak, and just let us know what you think about the show. We have some pretty big guests that we're working on lining up. Not just Top Shot aficionados, but also just people in sports. I've got a professional wrestler lined up, and we're going to discuss like marketing and how it's important for like players to kind of market themselves, and just professional wrestling stories in general are just awesome. So that's going to be coming up in probably the next couple of weeks. I got some professional poker players that are going to be on. Wade's has decided to gracious as a correspondent, and so we're going to try and get him on a little bit more frequently. Even though he hides behind the shadows, he gives us some class with his Australian accent. So I needled him for that on the last show. And anyways, be sure to subscribe, comment, do all that stuff on Twitter. I'm at Bar Therapist. You can still pick up my book, The Bartending Therapist, on Amazon. Shameless plug. And that's going to do it for us.